Hey everyone. So, most of you will know me personally watching this video. For those who don't, my name is Zach and I'm a shamanic practitioner based in Brisbane, Australia. In this time, I haven't really been able to do what I'd normally be doing, seeing clients, running workshops, dispatcho ceremonies, lots of face-to-face kind of work. So I wanted to put together a series of videos for people who are interested in sort of being introduced to shamanism and starting to work with it, and then go on and do workshops either with myself or any other shamanic teachers around the place. So I decided that I'd do a series of videos based around journeying, journey trance works, going to the lower, upper and middle worlds and guiding people through those journeys. Before I did that, I don't say I really wanted to, but I thought I should just put a quick video together just introducing myself and giving a little bit of background on my journey with shamanism and how I've ended up where I am sort of in this moment. So my sort of journey and introduction with shamanism probably started when I was sort of late teens. Both my mother and my stepdad were very involved within the sort of spiritual and shamanic community that we have going around sort of Brisbane and the Gold Coast area here in Queensland. So that they began working with shamanism well before I did, and that's how I sort of was introduced. When I finished high school back in 2012, I went on a family trip to Hawaii with my mum, stepdad and younger brother. That was my first introduction to shamanism. While we were there, mum and stepdad were taking part in a bit of a retreat run by Kerry Henwood, who is my shamanic teacher, Georgia Hovey, who works with rebirthing and breathwork, and then Mari and Herman Muller, who ran a sort of spiritual centre out of the Gold Coast, and also ran the College of Psychosomatic training here in sort of Queensland. So in the following years, I would end up doing a lot of trainings at their property, as Kerry, when she was in Australia, often worked out of there while it was running. So my introduction was very much just doing little bits here and there with the sort of Polynesian and Hawaiian traditions and just sort of learning little bits. I wasn't really partaking in the retreat. Myself and my younger brother were more so there just to check out Hawaii as opposed to focusing on the spiritual retreat. But we both sort of stepped in and out of certain parts and talked to people who were there doing the retreat. I talked to a bunch of people and hung out with them and talked about what they did and sort of learned a bit about different modalities, whether new agey stuff or older stuff, and just a mix of all that and just talking to people and seeing what they did and learning a bit more about shamanism or sort of just energy and spiritual healing in general. So after Hawaii, I sort of went back home and didn't really start to do anything with shamanism. I worked and saved money, took a gap year, didn't go straight into uni or anything, and with the idea to go travelling. So that following year, again, we went to a retreat over in Peru that Kerry and Georgia had again put together. That was quite an extensive retreat. We spent quite a lot of time over there in Peru, traveling to different regions, participating in different ceremonies, rituals, and meeting some local shamans in different lineages, and learning about sort of the history of different parts of Peru, and yeah, just really exploring it quite intensively, which was a fantastic trip, just incredible. And from that point on, that's really when it clicked that shamanism was something that I was incredibly interested with and wanted to pursue as much as I possibly could. My first introduction to sort of working within a trance-type altered state was doing an ayahuasca ceremony with a curandero plant shaman over in Peru, Alonso, who was Kerry's teacher when it came to plants and plant medicine and that sort of thing. So Kerry sort of organised with him for a group of us to go as part of this retreat and do ayahuasca ceremonies and whatnot with him for a little bit while we were in his area of Peru. So that was, for me, it was both the greatest thing I've ever done and absolutely terrifying. I have extreme anxiety, and for me, most of that was always based around an intense fear of vomiting. So when you go into an ayahuasca ceremony and you know that purging is a huge part of it, and that's one of your biggest fears in life, it's a bit intimidating. But I went and I did that, sat in ceremonies and whatnot, and it was incredibly hard for me in some aspects, but in others, I was completely drawn to it and knew that it was something that I wanted to do. So from there, I went and travelled Europe and did a few things by myself that I, saved up to go and do once we finished up in Peru. When I arrived back home, I pretty immediately jumped into and started training in core shamanism with Kerry. She used to run a level 1 and level 2 workshop based around the core shamanic practices. So they were the practices that Michael Harner put together when he went around the globe to different traditions and basically took all of the the core elements that they all worked with, and he sort of squished it into a training so people could just learn those basics of shamanic healing and using it personally or using it on clients for healing work and whatnot. The soul retrieval, extraction work, those sorts of things that are just common themes throughout the world of shamanic cultures. So that I sort of was thrown at the deep end with ayahuasca, and then with the core shamanism went right back to the beginning and started at the basics and built up my understanding and learning from there. Over the years, I have sort of started to drift off a little more towards certain traditions and working with them a little more focused rather than just focusing on the core shamanism and just saying this is what I do, this is what I'm going to do. Some people do that, and I mean that is completely fine. I know plenty of incredibly effective healers and practitioners who only use the sort of core elements, and the work they do is just incredible. But I was super interested in learning about some different techniques and just different cultures and cosmologies of the traditions, mostly in Peru. About 3 years after going to Peru, we then went over to the States and did another retreat that Kerry and Georgia had popped together in Mount Shasta. So while we were there again, went to a few different ceremonies and things, met with Indigenous people throughout the different areas of the states that we were in, and learned a little bit about their sort of cultures and the different lineages that you find around the states in the areas that we were in. which was incredibly interesting, and I loved learning about all of those things. But for me, it definitely showed that I was more interested in the lineages of South America, the up in the Andes and down in the Amazon basin, and then also sort of drifting off a little bit and doing some work with the traditions around sort of Tibet, Nepal, and parts of India that bring in sort of the Vedic and traditions and Bon shamanism and that style of thing. So that's primarily the work that I do: core shamanism, some things that stem from South America, and some things that stem from the sort of Vedic tradition over in India, Nepal, Tibet. So those three are the ones that I've sort of focused on most with the work that I do. So I'm going to jump in pretty quickly with these next few videos and start to give some practical stuff and journey work for people to do, but I just wanted to take, it's now been over 10 minutes, but just take a little while to introduce myself for those who don't know me, and explain sort of what my journey's been and a bit about myself. I don't like talking about myself, but thought it was a good place to start. So thanks for listening, and look forward to connecting with you all through the other videos, and hope that you enjoy the things I'm planning on putting out there. Thank you, and see you later.